Welcome back to Bookish Dives. You know, after some fantastic explorations recently, we're setting our sights on something a little different today. We're diving into Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Dream Count, which is, well, it's a collection that really defies easy categorization, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not a straightforward novel.
No.
It's more like this mosaic, as you said, built from personal thoughts, bits of conversations, really sharp cultural observations.
Exactly. It gives you these, like, incredibly perceptive snapshots of modern life, you know, across different continents. It feels like getting direct access to some really insightful takes on, well, everything from relationships to big global events.
That's a great way to put it. And I think the power of Dream Count is how it feels fragmented piece by piece, but it creates this really cohesive overall picture.
Yeah.
Each little bit gives you a glimpse into something bigger, prompts you, the reader, to kind of connect the dots and think about today's complexities through a very, very human lens.
Right.
We've got reflections on the early pandemic days, observations on cultural clashes, the real intricacies of how we connect with each other.
So our mission today, then, is to really sort of delve into this collection. We want to pull out some of the most compelling insights, those moments that really stick with you.
Okay.
We'll unpack how Adichie shows global events hitting our personal lives, the subtleties in relationships, and her very sharp takes on identity and social dynamics. Get ready for some moments, I think.
Sounds good. So where do we start? That opening, maybe?
Yeah.
The pandemic hitting, seen through that phone call with her friend Zikora.
Oh, yeah. That was powerful. What immediately grabbed me was the contrast, this huge global crisis, right? And then the super personal, almost mundane setting, a Walmart.
Right, the Walmart.
Zikora, double-masked, gloved, buying toilet paper, police directing the line. It just instantly captured that weird, surreal feeling of everyday life turned completely upside down.
Totally surreal.
And then that observation, about the white man in front of me is suspect, the guy in the big truck, red hat. It's such a raw snapshot of how fear can just instantly breed suspicion, division.
And it shows how a huge global thing immediately becomes personal, right? Triggering these instant reactions, these judgments, and the detail about Zikora switching to Igbo on the phone. What did you make of that?
It felt like this instinctive reach for intimacy, for shared ground in a moment that felt so globally uncertain, like pulling up a linguistic shield against the weirdness.
That makes sense. A retreat to the familiar.
Yeah.
And if you look across Dream Count, you see this pattern again and again, don't you? These massive external things, the pandemic, politics, they profoundly shape our most, private worlds. The Zoom calls she mentions later sort of echo this too.
Oh, the Zoom calls, yes. On the surface, it's about staying connected, right? But she points out this undercurrent of loss. She says, at the end of each Zoom call, I felt lonelier than before. Not because the call had ended, but that it had been made at all. To talk was to remember all that was lost. That's quite a take on virtual connection in a crisis.
It really is. And it brings up that whole question about what technology can't do. It can't provide that genuine comfort sometimes.
Exactly.
You see and hear people, but that physical absence, not being able to just give someone a hug, that longing is so clear, especially in that dream she has about hugging her mother.
Yeah. And then there's the story of Nafissatou, locked down but already dealing with her own trauma. Adichie's worry, the check-ins, remembering the panic in Nafissatou's voice. It shows how a global crisis doesn't pause personal struggles. If anything,
It intensifies them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nafissatou's situation, being trapped in that lockdown's limbo, it just magnifies those pre-existing anxieties, doesn't it?
Totally.
And her hesitation about therapy, saying, I cannot talk to a stranger, that really highlights how important trust and familiarity are for seeking help, especially when you're already feeling vulnerable.
That's a really key point. Shifting gears a bit, another major thread in Dream Count is her incredibly candid look at relationships, especially the one with Darnell.
Oh, yes.
The repeated idea of lying to please him, to be the person he wanted me to be, that speaks volumes about, well, insecurity and needing that external validation,
It's really striking how honest she is there. It shows a vulnerability that maybe you wouldn't expect. The image of her phone, always nearby, never on silent.
Right.
Even getting annoyed at other messages taking up space meant for him. It just paints such a vivid picture of that emotional imbalance, that sort of obsession that can happen in, well, maybe unrequited or insecure love.
Yeah, the imbalance is stark, her intense feelings versus his distance.
Very affecting.
And how she links her emotional state to her writing In his silences, I failed more. That really connects the personal and the creative, doesn't it? Like his
Yeah.
unavailability was stifling her.
Exactly. It raises that crucial idea of how our relationships can either, you know, feed our growth or actively block it. Seeking those wretched scraps of reassurance, as she puts it, you can feel the emotional drain.
Hmm. Later on, though, we see a different kind of connection explored the family trip to Portugal.
Ah, yes, the historical layer there.
Her father's tradition, taking them there every year out of gratitude for Portugal's role regarding Biafra during the war. That's such a powerful example of history shaping personal ties, even travel choices.
And what's interesting is her observation about Lisbon changing, how her family used to be like the only Africans shopping on that fancy avenue.
Avenida da Liberdade.
Right. And then suddenly the assumption is they must be Angolan because of the oil boom. It's such a subtle but sharp comment on shifting global power and how identity gets perceived through an economic lens.
In her brother Binachi's line, history is reversed, Angola is saving the Portuguese economy, just adds another layer, right? The irony of post-colonial relationships. It seems small, but it says so much about how narratives and fortunes shift.
It really does. And this kind of leads into her experiences trying to do travel writing, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, that rejection.
Her initial idea, offering lighthearted observations from an African perspective, and the travel magazines just shutting it down, it really shows the challenge of, breaking into established narratives. The expectations can be so narrow.
That editor's forceful no, with the exclamation mark, you remember that vividly. It perfectly illustrates that kind of resistance, that gatekeeping. And her own self-doubt, wondering if her takes were too high and mighty, feels so relatable if you've ever tried to do something different.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it connects in a way to that later story about the taxi in Mexico during spring break. Remember that?
Where she gets accused immediately of being insensitive to poverty.
Yeah. It just shows how fast judgments happen based on assumptions about class, privilege, and the pressure to sort of perform a certain reaction, even if it means squashing your own genuine feelings.
That theme of identity and navigating different social worlds comes up again with Darnell's friends, too.
Right, the acid humor.
Yeah, and Darnell's comments kind of barbed about, geez, people probably sold my people. It just throws into relief the complexities, the sensitivities around history, even in personal relationships.
And you feel the awkwardness in the room, right? Those expressions of in-between, she calls them. And how Adichie carefully crafts her replies to try and smooth things over. It shows those delicate negotiations in interracial or intercultural dynamics where history can just bubble up unexpectedly.
Like at that fundraising gala, too. Darnell proudly mentioning her family's palm oil, its links to colonial trade. It's this weird mix of pride, maybe resentment, and needing to assert some kind of historical connection.
It's a great reminder that even casual chats can be loaded with history and power dynamics. How people navigate that tells you a lot about their understanding of the past and, well, their place now.
Moving towards the end of Dream Count, there's that incredibly powerful section about Zikora giving birth.
Oh, visceral is the word.
The raw description of the pain, feeling like her body was forsaken, it's so intense. I imagine it resonates deeply with anyone who's been through labor or witnessed it.
What's really striking is that contrast between Zikora's intense internal reality and the medical staff's detached comments. You're not progressing. That rather dismissive what you feel is perfectly normal.
Yeah.
It just highlights that potential gap between the patient's subjective experience and the clinical view.
And the helplessness of just waiting, not finding comfort, even in prayer. It conveys how overwhelming it is. That crumpled rosary on the table, it's such a potent symbol of even deeply held faith being swamped by that kind of primal intensity.
That section really pulls back the curtain on the often unspoken realities of childbirth, the vulnerability of it all, feeling totally unprepared, even after weeks of waiting and the body just doing its own chaotic thing. It shatters any neat, tidy ideas about it.
Definitely. Dream Count also gives us these nuanced glimpses into female friendships, doesn't it? Particularly the bond between Adichie and Omelogor.
Yes. Even within that really deep connection, you see subtle tensions, moments of misunderstanding. Like the fog she mentions, sometimes existing between Omelogor and Zikora.
It's a good reminder that even the closest relationships aren't always smooth sailing, right? Different personalities, different lives. They create these undercurrents, and the person in the middle often ends up being the mediator, the glue.
So true. And the anxiety about introducing a new partner into the mix, Adichie being nervous about Omelogor meeting Darnell, that feels very familiar.
Oh, yeah.
That fear of upsetting the balance, hoping the people you care about will accept each other.
It really highlights that delicate juggling act, managing different parts of your life, wanting harmony between the important people, thinking Zikora needs to be there to neutralize things or LaShawn to balance things.
Right.
It shows the careful planning we sometimes do in our social lives.
Looking back at the whole collection, what really stands out from Dream Count is Adichie's incredible skill at weaving together the personal and the political, the mundane and the profound. Whether she's describing, like we said, pandemic stress in Walmart or reflecting on the complexities of love, she gives you a perspective that feels deeply individual, but also speaks to something much broader, much more resonant.
Couldn't agree more. And it's that specific blend, the intimate stories alongside the sharp social commentary that makes Dream Count so compelling, so thought-provoking. It's a reminder, isn't it, that even in this super interconnected world, our individual experiences, our unique viewpoints, they still hold immense value. They can offer these really profound insights into the bigger human picture.
We've really only scratched the surface today, haven't we? There's so much more depth in her writing.
Definitely. So if this deep dive into Dream Count has sparked your curiosity and you're looking for more explorations of compelling books like this one, concise but insightful, make sure you follow Bookish Dives for your regular dose of literary nourishment.
Yes, keep listening.
We'll keep bringing you thought-provoking summaries and takeaways, hoping to enrich your understanding of the world, one book at a time. Thanks so much for diving in with us today.